Hello, and welcome to Educational Triage, where we discuss issues in alternative education. This is a discussion about teaching, by teachers, for teachers, and others who are interested in the alternative education world. We hope you find today's episode relevant, engaging, and useful. And if you do, please subscribe. I'm Tony Hunt, and I'm here to help guide you with the help of my friends Christy and Philip. And welcome back to another rousing episode of Educational Triage. This is Tony Hunt. I am here with my two other guides, with the fascinating Christy Goodell.
Yay! That's me.
And the interrogating Philip Summers.
Aloha.
Oh,
I think.
it's a good adjective as well.
Yeah, there we go.
Interrogating.
Okay, so today we are tackling college. And for some reason or other, we teach everybody that they need to go to college. If you ask seventh graders what they're planning on doing when they graduate from high school, the vast majority of them will tell you that they're going to go to college. And that just seems to be sort of the mythos that goes around what happens after high school, I guess. And are we doing right by our students to teach them this, or what are we doing? What are we doing?
No, we're not doing well by the students by just teaching them that. That is for sure. Yeah, that is definitely the answer. But there are reasons why.
Well, I have a really good friend, and years ago, when his son was a freshman in high school, he didn't seem to be all that intrigued by scholastics and academics. And I said, well, what are you going to do if he doesn't want to go to college? And he said, no, he will go to college. He needs to go to college. And this friend of mine, he was the first one in his family to ever go to college. And for him, it was a struggle. He worked full time for several years before, and then he was able to afford to go, and he worked and he figured things out, and he's scrappy and he's got a lot of grit, so he was able to make it through. And he's done extremely well for himself. But then later on, he realized that wasn't the path for his son. So, and he's very proud of his son, and his son's doing well in the field that he has chosen that did not require any extra schooling. So, but parents seem to think, and students seem to think, that they need to go to college. Why? What, Christy, why does your son want to go to college?
I think there is a perception that in order to be successful, that equates to a college degree. And by successful means, employment with job security and not just like money enough to pay the bills, but it's, comfortably, living comfortably. And I think also if you are, depends on what your parents did, right? Like kind of what is the mantra or the environment that you were raised in. And I happen to be a college graduate, and so is my husband. So my children were raised with two parents that also have college degrees. So I'm sure that sways it a bunch, but I think it's becoming not fast enough, in my opinion, but I think that more people are recognizing that college does not have to be the singular only choice. And a big part of it is financial. Right? It costs so much money to go to college, and you tend to be in pretty significant debt when you graduate from college. It takes longer to get. It's not a guaranteed 4-year degree anymore. It takes a long time, and the cost of it, especially, I think more and more families are realizing that I can get the same. My child that graduates high school can get the same requirements met at a community college than what my son is going to college right now, and what we're paying for his Writing 121 class and his, entry-level business course. Another person could probably take the same class at our local community college, and they're paying a lot less.
And you wouldn't have to be paying the room and board as well.
Right.
I'm walking, talking proof on that. It's amazing how many people don't know that. That's how I did it. 2 years community college, then I got my university, then I did my master's. It was much cheaper, much easier. Yeah. So that's a well-kept secret.
Community college,
still. Yeah.
Community college, you're able to build those relationships, and you're able to have more of a one-on-one because it's more transitory between high school and university.
Oh, well, and I had a professor who used to say that he loved the junior college students because they tended to be older, and they had been out there, and they had every crappy job there was. They worked all the bad shifts, and they really wanted the better jobs. So they were better students. And so he liked their motivation. He said he loved the older students. Mostly, we were late 20s. I started when I was 28, junior college. I turned 29 like within a month, but I started at 28 going to college. So that's another thing too. They don't tell you is if you don't know what you want to do, don't go to college. It's a colossal waste of money. And a lot of kids I see, they go to college and they end up not going to college by the end of the semester. It's very strange. That happens a lot too.
Well, let me give you some statistics here too.
I was going to say, I have some stats. I have some stats as well. There you go.
Okay. Yeah. 40% of college dropouts have a 3.0 or better. 39% of dropouts say it wasn't worth the money. Nowadays, financial reasons make up 38% of why people drop out. And 30% of freshmen drop out in their first year. And non-whites tend to be much, much higher than that.
Those are big numbers.
They are. 28% of dropouts do so because they don't feel as though they're prepared academically. And 23% drop out their fourth year.
That surprises me.
Yeah. I think that
I knew about that going right out of high school into college. A lot of kids just ran to this, wait a minute, I don't want to be here kind of thing. And then they dropped out. And then they went back later, which was, I hoped a lot of them did, because then they knew what they wanted to do. I just never even attempted it until I was 28, which was to my benefit, certainly, because when I did, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. And I just beelined right to it. And with all the great intention that I had, it turned out to be a great thing to do. So, yeah. However, it wasn't a great return. That's the other thing too. The return wasn't great.
Hold on, Philip. Let's let Christy have her say.
What I was going to say is that I think the perception that college education is important or like the number one choice. Some of the stats that I was looking at was that it's shifting. So in 2013, 70% polled on this in this Gallup poll believed that a college education was important compared to 51% at the time. So in 2013, 70% believed it. And in 2019, only 51% of the adults believed that college education was important. And then the other one was like in 2018 on the US Census, they were saying that only 35% of the US population aged 25 and older actually have a college degree. So where is the perception? If only a third of the population has the degree, then why is there this belief that college is the only option as opposed to just one of the options?
Right.
I just thought that was an interesting.
Well, one of the things I saw was, that there's no vocational programs, or let's say that there are there's much fewer programs than there used to be. And so it might be that counseling just recommends a lot less vocational training when you get out of high school because they don't have anything to offer so much as high school training. They used to have that pipeline. And I remember they used to talk about electricians and plumbers a lot more. Now it's sort of a buzz about go to college. What's your college plan? What's your career plan? But the fact of the matter is, they say, I used to tell students, you change your career 5 times in your lifetime. Now it turns out it's like 12 plus. So there goes, it's got to be, some of them have got to be vocation. You're not going to be 12 different professions that are college educated
Right, that
professions.
each require their own degree, right? Yeah,
Right.
that's expensive.
Right. But now community colleges, I believe, are more prepared because they have all sorts of vocational programs that are going on. They have the culinary, they have the plumbing, they have the electrician, uh, they have a slew of programs that students can sign up on, and some of them that's kind of their specialty. So there is one community college on the other side of the river from where I am, and they have their, let's call them labs or their specialty classrooms just down the street from where I teach.
Mm-hmm.
So they're in a completely different county, but the classrooms are in this county. So it's really interesting. And I talked to I don't want to call him a kid, but a young man who was working as a plumber in my house one day a few years ago, and I said, "Okay, tell me, what did you do to become a plumber?" And he went to that community college and he went through the program and he did what they had him do. And now he's making a decent living. He and his wife have bought a house. I mean, it's pretty good. The plumber that I have working with me right now, he lives down the street from me in a very nice house. And I hate to say this, but for about 2 to 3 hours of work, I think he made probably about $400 an hour.
Oh, I mean, yeah,
And
the salaries are unbelievable. When I was doing, sorry, Tony, I did exactly what I was not wanting to do. So I cut you off. My bad.
no, you're fine.
So I did this the vocational trade internship last summer where we went down to like you said, a different county. We went to all these different trade and the a bunch of the construction companies, and they kind of showed us how they are trained on the equipment and then also in development. And then we went to all the different types of certification and training you can get in electronics and being an electrician, and then just like with computers. And it's just amazing all the careers that are out there, and like every field is, they cannot find people fast enough. They, like, you are getting trained and paid a lot of the times at the same time because they need people, these vocational skilled, trained, and they're making really good salary, and it's job security, right? Because people keep building, development is not slowing down. People need plumbers, that's not ending, right? The big infrastructure bill, like infrastructure is it was a topic on the State of the Union, right? Like they need to keep rebuilding the roads and the bridges, so they need lots of trained, that's not going away. I mean,
Right. And
it,
you have the sweat equity scholarships through Mike
mhm,
Rowe's organization. You have a lot of them. The
yeah,
interesting thing is, I was given a job listing just the other day, and we read it out to the students, and we told them that once they graduated, that this one company paid between $25 and $35 an hour. They just needed to be 18. They needed to have a driver's license. And do you know how many students are now motivated to graduate early in our program? They are just,
right,
they're seriously, they're, I mean, because they're tired of working for sub $15 an hour,
yeah.
Right.
and they want
Right.
to be making something good. And it's something that they really could sink their teeth into, at least for now. It may not be a lifetime career, but it's something where they can get experience and they can like start building a little bit of a nest egg, and while they try to figure out what it is that they really want to do.
And they're remaining employed, right? Like they're
Mm-hmm.
staying employed at a longer rate. That was another statistic, was that as of February of 2019, the unemployment rate of recent college graduates in the US by major was as high as like 7.9%. And then the underemployment rate was as high as 73% based on their major. Like, I mean, just so college does not equate to guaranteed employment.
No, and
Plus,
that
you're
tends to
saddled
be
with
No.
more
debt.
Right.
Yeah.
Plus that tends to be more for liberal arts degrees.
Right.
And liberal arts are losing they're losing traction. People
Mhm.
are not registering, they're not taking those classes. They're taking the ones that they have to take
Yeah.
as part of their degree.
And the
But those are
older
no
you
longer the
are,
majors.
well, the older you are, the longer you stay at your job too. Data is
That's
showing
also
that
true.
us dumb
Yes.
boomers.
Oh
I'm a
yeah.
late boomer. I'm like barely a boomer, but yeah, we stay
Dumb
at the job like
boomers.
8 some years. And Gen Zs are like, after 2.5 years, are going, I'm out of here, man. They're looking for better
Right.
climates. You know, they're not
Yeah,
messing
you're
around
absolutely
like that. Like
right.
Tony was saying, they're looking for that better opportunity real quick, and they're trying. After 2.5 years, they're going, oh, I'm moving on. You know, I'm going up the
Right.
ladder. And here's another thing: my son went to a private school and got a liberal arts degree, anthropology. God bless him. And got out of college, went to Seattle. I think I told this story. Kicked around, met a kind of a very intelligent gentleman who learned how to cold distill, sort of organically distill something, and they went into business and they're very successful. So he didn't even really apply his anthropology degree per se. He has a college
Yeah.
degree, but he went into
Well,
business, and that's where his success came from.
Right.
So
but you know,
that's
it's
also
sometimes
happening.
college is about connections too.
Yeah, and that happened. I
And
Oh,
mean,
for
and
yeah,
sure.
just
yeah, yeah.
you know, my mom used to say, I said, okay, I'm going to go to college. So that means that I'm definitely going to have a job in what I study, right? And she said, no.
No, not
She said, look,
necessarily.
she said, here's the thing. If you make it through elementary school, you kind of sort of have a tiny little ticket that nobody really wants to look at. If you make it through high school, yeah, you got a ticket. I mean, if you're smart and if you're pushy and if you really, really get yourself going and convince people and do a good job no matter where you are, yeah, you have doors that open for you.
Right.
But it's going to be a heck of a lot harder to be as successful that way than it would be for you to say if you got an associate's degree, a 2-year degree at the community college.
Hmm.
She said, all these things provide you a ticket, but nothing guarantees you a job.
Right.
So
Yeah. Very wise
maybe
person.
And so, what the way that students are starting to look at college now, they're going after tech, they're going after engineering, they're going after cybersecurity, they're looking at
Oh, yeah.
vocational, they're
Hmm.
looking
Mhm.
at all these things that are actually employing.
Hmm.
Because how many philosophy majors can you fit into?
Oh
I don't
no.
know. I mean, no, I
I was
don't.
waiting for the punchline. How
There
many in a
isn't one.
book? You put in a book.
There isn't one. I'm sitting there and I'm trying to figure out
Yeah.
what I'm trying to say. Well,
How
it's
many
been a
screw in a
very
light
long
bulb?
day.
Yeah.
What the old joke about
No,
what do English majors
it's
say? You
like
want fries with that? That was
Yeah.
yeah,
it's a
right,
terrible
right.
joke.
Right.
That is a
And
very
so,
old joke. I apologize to all the
but
English
those are
majors
the
out there,
ones that are
my brother
underemployed.
included.
It takes a liberal arts major up to 5 years to find gainful employment
Mhm.
After they graduate,
or
like
more
after.
after they've graduated.
Oh, can't
And
wait.
the average amount of debt is $27,777.
That's lucky.
That's no, that's the average amount of debt
No,
that people incur
that is
going to
that
school.
seems light.
It
So,
sounds like we saw the same stats. Did you see the total value of student loan debt for like across the US just even 2 years ago?
Do tell.
1.6 trillion with a T,
Oh,
trillion dollars in student loan debt. I know, look at us. Yeah, we're on the same stat. Yeah.
oh my
So I think
gosh.
I'm really pleased that more and more of our students are viewing community college and trades as not necessarily like a second choice, but as a smart parallel choice. Does it make sense? Like it's um, I don't want to say alternative because it's just,
you're giving them options as
yeah,
far as what they might be able to do.
Right.
So let's say that I'm going to go in and, okay, so Philip, you're my son. You're really into cars. I'm going to say, why don't you look at auto body? Why don't you look at some of the automotive stuff and get yourself on your feet? And maybe you could do that for a little bit. And then when you're finished with that, then you could, maybe afford to go to college and find another kind of degree. Maybe there's something else that you want to do. And because I believe that you don't really know what your purpose is. And I'm going to emphasize the word purpose, because I don't believe that in school that we define purpose for our students. And purpose, a student who goes to college and is successful tends to have a purpose. They know why they're there. They know what they want to study. And then some of them realize, oh my gosh, no, this is not what I want to do. Oh my gosh, I'm in the 15th circle of hell here, and I need to get out as soon as I can. And so then they have to have some kind of reckoning where they figure out what they're going to do. However, they've already had a ton of they may already have a ton of college experience and the classes behind them. And so they have that going for them. And they may have a better idea of what it is that they do want to do. Because when you're in college, you do look at in your, what do you call that? The electives or the requirements, like your prerequisites that you need to take.
Your prereqs.
Yeah, your prereqs. You need to, it exposes you to a number of different things, and you're exposed to a lot of other people as well. And so you find out more because you're curious and you're asking questions.
Yeah.
So, but we don't teach purpose. We don't teach purpose in middle school. We don't teach purpose in high school. And in elementary school, maybe there might be some element of what is your purpose, but hey, kids are still trying to figure
the reason
out,
we can't teach purpose is because purpose is something that the individual has to define. And we teach the basic skills. High school teaches generally to the average human in the intelligence level up to that 18 years old. We teach the basic skills you need by which to sort of integrate them all into creating something with your own purpose. Some people are much more intelligent and can actually start creating at an earlier age. And some people at a later age. It just seems to be the way we develop as humans. Some people fail and fail and fail. And then later they go, hey, I didn't like what path I was on, change paths and become wildly successful at what they do. It's a lifelong path. Generally speaking, we can't teach purpose generally because we can't collaborate with the student on an advanced level. The purpose comes together when we create something that's really new. And I had heard something about 70% of the jobs that are going to exist in 30 years, we don't even know what they are yet. And so I kind of reverse that back to that's up to all our purposes. And so when I hear a kid in high school say, I want to start a recording studio, I say, really? That's his purpose. Now, that's his target. But along the way, the goals are to build in the business sense, the savvy, work hard, build the clientele, build the musicians in his label, build a network of people listening to the music of the musicians in his label, do the work it takes to build the thing he wants. His purpose is to build a record label. Therefore, that's a target. And that becomes his purpose. The goal is all those things he needs to learn.
Part of his purpose.
Yeah.
Well, that's his goal.
Mm-hmm. The goal, I change it. I say his target, because we say his goal, once he gets there, he doesn't stop running. He runs right through it and creates another target. The goals are the things we learn along the way on the target. I need to learn how to do this. I need to get these musicians taken care of. I need to get this concert schedule set. I need to get these acts signed to get this target of a record company built. That's the target. See what I'm saying? Changing it so you don't run to a place. You run through the place and onward. Life is a journey that does not end. There is no
I
finish
hear what
line.
you're saying.
Yeah.
However, I'm going to disagree with you on your terms. I'm going to say that his purpose is to learn the music business. And
that would be the
his
purpose.
end goal, right?
You're right.
To learn the music business, because I want to be in the music business and I want to produce music. It's not necessarily to own a studio, but if that happens, then that can be something that happens
he's
along
creating
the way.
a music
He's got to learn right. He's got to learn all the finance. He's got to learn all the logistics. He's got to learn all the physics of the music and how the soundboard works. He's got so many different aspects that he has to do. He's got to
work hard.
So, and his goal is to be successful in the music business. Now, where he finds himself, I have students who say, I want to do sports. And it's like, okay, what do you want to do in sports? Do you want to do sports marketing? Do you want to do sports training? Do you want to do sports medicine? And just going through tons of different kinds of careers that are in there. And that's where it piques their interest. So, and then their purpose then becomes, what is it that I want to do following my passion, which is in this field?
Right.
Now, maybe they're going to learn all kinds of things and they're going to end up, let's say, on Madison Avenue or something, and sports becomes sort of a side hustle for them or something, or, their hobby. And, but still, they have a purpose and they learn something while following that purpose. So, giving students an idea or a goal, a target for them to hit, which would be, what is your passion and what are some of the jobs that you might be able to find that surround that?
Right.
I have that conversation.
So if I love cars, right. One of my brothers, he loved cars. He loved cars. And he was, I'm just going to say, he was not good at academics. And my mother finally said, you know what? Join the military, get your act together. And he came home one day and he said, guess what? And she said, what? He said, I joined the military. I'm in the Navy. And she said, no. So off he went for his 4-year stint in the Gulf of Tonkin and in Vietnam. And then he came home and he went to school and he used some of the training, the things that put him in line and the discipline he had, and all of a sudden he just sort of took off, and he used his people skills, and he became a Ford Motor Company executive. So he was doing cars, he was doing all these things, and later on he became a partner with some of the most successful car dealerships in the Portland, Seattle areas, and that's what he did. And he really loved his work. And it was exactly where he wanted to be. And he wasn't a mechanic. He just loved cars.
Right.
That's success.
So, right. He was also a DJ. He did all kinds of stuff on his way up. But, they were never his goal. They were things that he really enjoyed. And had they worked out, he probably would have taken them because he was more of a marketing person, a salesman.
But the nice thing about kind of circling back right to our topic is that for a lot of students who have kind of like an idea, either a passion or a goal or a purpose, but they don't quite know either how to get gainful employment in that area. Like, I know I love to take things apart, but I'm not quite sure what I want to do. Or like, the big one, I love sports. Well, we got to narrow that down. Or I love, trucks or whatever, right? And so community college is such a wonderful opportunity that you can explore. And when you're not locked into a full program, right, you can change, and you don't have to be like, well, now you've just blown tens of thousands of dollars there are definitely bonuses to college. Like, my child's going to college. He's thriving. It's in a field that he's now interested in. And so it's working well for him, which is nice. But like you were saying, Philip, these fields that are being developed like as we speak, I just don't even know what they are. And when I was touring some of the community colleges, there was the one I was telling Tony about. It was like, I'm going to smear the name, mechatronics. So it was like machinery and robotics. So it's all the stuff like you had to figure out the programming and all the robotics that kind of go in it. And it's just everywhere, like frozen yogurt machines. You have to know how to work the whole machine parts of it. And it's also run with all the computer and the electronics, and like it's every part of our life. And so that's just such a neat way to, explore and get all this training. And a lot of them partner with, like you were saying, Tony, with these connections. So a lot of them partner with these huge corporations. Like one of the other community colleges partners with Boeing. And so they learn how to do like, someone's got to test the metal and the bolts for, for the airplanes, right? And for the helicopters, you certainly want to make sure that happens. Like your kitty. Right. And so that is such a great field that you can get that hands-on training, and they've got connections to corporations that get you employment that necessarily is not guaranteed with a college degree.
No, it's not.
And it's changing. Don't you think it can change faster and adapt to the current job requirements at a community college faster, I feel, than at a
Do you know
college?
that right now there are some programs at some colleges and community colleges that are ramping up the speed through which you can actually get what you need from the program? And they're not holding you to the semester or the quarter.
Really?
Yeah.
No.
That's a change.
That makes sense.
It is. I wasn't able to completely explore it, but there is an article, and I'll put it into the show notes. And a handful of colleges are finally providing training in a way consumers want it fast, and it's called rapid reskilling.
Rapid reskilling. I like that.
Yeah. So if you're able to learn and to move through skills at a certain pace, then you move on to the next one. Yeah. So it's based more. My understanding is that it's based more on competency,
like proficiency based.
Exactly. Dun, dun, dun. Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh! Full the circle. Thing that schools have trashed. So they found that people are more willing to participate in those programs. But here's the interesting thing too. Did you know that over 60% of people with manufacturing degrees or manufacturing certifications, I'm trying to find that right here, that they are not even using those. They chose a different field.
Wait, the ones who
people who achieved manufacturing certifications,
okay,
to work in manufacturing, are not even using that. They've gone into other fields. Isn't that interesting?
That is. I mean, that's kind of
like I was an EMT. I was a paramedic, and I became a nationally certified paramedic. But I learned as I became just a paramedic and not a firefighter that there was no chance for advancement in the private ambulance business. So once I was a paramedic, if I wanted to continue to do the work as a paramedic, there was no place higher to go. I had to become like a supervisor of paramedics and therefore no longer on a car in the field. And when I went to go to get college credit and see if I could get college credit to become an emergency department nurse, they couldn't offer me a single credit for 5 years in the field. And I worked at the trauma
so your experience
center at the
did not
University
count.
of Oregon. Yeah, I got nothing, not a piece of credit, no reciprocity, nothing. So
because it doesn't fit into their business model. It has to do with a business model. My niece transferred from a school on the East Coast where she had a full ride to one in Portland and or in Oregon, and there were certain credits that they refused to accept, and it was because they didn't have those credits at their school, and so she had to completely change her major. She figured out an interdisciplinary one, but it wasn't quite the same thing. And then she also went away for a semester at sea, and they refused to take a lot of those credits as well. And we're talking, at that time, it was about $20,000 a semester. And so when you're talking about a school, it was more than that. and this was many years ago. And when you're talking about an education, and if a student has credits and they've earned these credits and they're recognized by other universities, why can't they transfer into your university?
Mm-hmm.
Because, and what they said was, well, no, because we need you to take those classes here. So it seems to me that the universities are a big business and they make huge money. I mean, take a look at the SAT, take a look at the ACT.
Okay, we start.
They make, I don't even know how much money they make. They are huge business.
That would be, yeah.
You know, it's billions. They make billions. And people
Well,
still
$100+ a test, and how many kids are taking them every year? Yikes.
Yeah,
right?
because if you want to get into a university, that's what you need. But if you go to community college, you do not need to take those. They just go off of your record. And community colleges don't even care about your GPA.
Nope, they don't. And I tell kids that too. I tell them that if you go to community college and you get a 4 and someone asks you, what's your GPA? And you say it's a 4, they will not follow up with, what'd you get in high school? Never, ever will they do that.
Right. Right.
Now you've given me impetus to ask that question.
Yeah, what was your GPA? Yeah.
Yeah, that would be awful. But you know, and
it works for the families too that need to, there's a lot of families that need to work, right? Like they can't afford to do full-time education for another 4 years, which is a lot of times what college and universities require. But at community college, you've got more flexibility, which is great.
You do.
You can still work, or if you do your internship, or if you're working the day, they've got the evening courses. So there's, which is appealing to a lot of people, that you can make it's a bit more flexible.
It seriously is. And, you know, the program that I run, we do the internships, and a lot of times those internships pay off for the students. So right now we have a car dealership that came out and asked to meet with some students, and they are going to provide a training program for our students so that they can come in full time and start working with them. And they will pay them. It's a paid job. I mean, it was wonderful. So any kid that wants to work on cars, because dealerships are dying, they need to have people working in the shops. They don't have enough mechanics. They don't have enough people working there. So my car broke down, not because it was a bad car. It's because I had somebody, I had new tires put on, and I had to deal with my tire guy, and he put tires that he thought they were fine to put on. They were much bigger than I've ever had on my car before, but he said they were fine, and it tripped out my tire sensor. So what happened was all my systems shut down.
Yeah.
And I could drive it, but I didn't have anything.
With your lead foot, right? You're burning the tires.
I drive like an elderly grandmother going to church.
No,
backward.
Do not. Nope. Disagree. But you're right. Like automotive technology is huge, right? Because cars are becoming more complicated, and
they are. And so what ended up happening was my tire guy had to take my car back in after it was diagnosed, but it took a week for me to get my car diagnosed because they did not have the manpower to be able to get that part done. And then when I got it to my tire guy, it was like flippity flop because he took care of everything in one day and replaced the part, blah, 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 and I was back on the road. So he has mechanics. The dealership, because he's a smaller business, the dealerships have to work on how many cars every day, and then to have to diagnose somebody else's car. It's sort of like the oil changes. That's kind of their bread and butter to get everything through.
Right.
So they have to do that, and then all the other mechanical rigmarole that they do is that's extra. So it takes them a bit longer to get to that point. But But they need to have those. So I think that if businesses started working and creating internships or creating more possibilities for students to jump on board, and students could come in, and
Mm-hmm.
if colleges, community colleges, whoever would grant some kind of credit for a lot of that the practicum, and just
Right.
call it a practicum for
Right.
whatever it is that they're doing, that if it's in a given field, then
The work experience. Mm-hmm.
that would serve so much. The only question is, are they going to charge them for that as well?
Yeah, that's
And
another
is
thing
that going to
too.
be
Yeah, they didn't. We used to offer job experience for having a job. I'd offer PE. If I had a dancer in my class or somebody who's doing club soccer, these are very, very intense endeavors. And so I'd give them PE credit. And, that's not offered in many schools. It's as if, no, you have to go and do that credit. You got to do it this way, otherwise we won't grant it. And the student's doing a very, very concerted effort on another way in 2 hours a day, like skaters. They wake up at dark 30. Hockey players and skaters, they skate for 2.5 hours before
Mhm.
even showing up for school, and then they got to go to PE for 45 minutes. Come on, that's silly. Give them the credit. They're 10 times the athlete that most of those kids are. It's their thing. So that's another thing about going to college and giving them the credit. They don't give them the credit for that either, so they should do that as well.
right? No, I agree. I
Yeah.
agree. I think that we need to start taking things into account. Experience counts more than,
Certainly.
what would the word be for
Just
just
It's
having
basic
something
instruction they're
that's,
getting in the health class,
yeah.
whereas they're studying their heart rate. Well, it, of course. Yeah, all
Hmm.
their biomechanics and everything to an
Yeah.
extent that's just
Yeah.
silly, compared to the health class they have to take in their sophomore year.
And see, what I think would be really kind of incredible is if there was like a summer seminar that would fit in for an elective, for a career related learning kind of thing, where the students could go and they could do the sort of the experience that Christy had last summer, where
Yeah.
she's
My
down
gosh.
there in the field
So
and they're
cool.
talking to them and they're explaining it to them. And for kids to say, hey, what would it take for me to get a job here? Can I get a job here? The only
Hmm.
problem is that they aren't local. So we also need to take a look at transportation,
Yeah. That's
because
very
not
true.
every kid has transportation. In fact, transportation can be one of, I never thought about this, but it makes perfect sense. Transportation can be a huge barrier to students continuing their education.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Absolutely. Right. Yes.
Because
That's
if you
true.
don't have, okay, for me, I have to walk at least a mile in order to catch a bus.
Yeah. And does the time of the bus, does the public transportation schedule align with the
Everything else, no.
right? Right.
If you think about how many buses some people have to take in order to get to any place,
Right.
and maybe it's not that easy for them to catch that bus.
Right. Like how far are they walking to get to the bus stop
Hmm.
and having the time align with the classes. And then, I mean,
Right.
yeah, that is a definite hindrance for many people, many families.
Hmm. And so if we're talking about helping people pull themselves out of poverty and pulling people out of poverty, that's another aspect of something that needs to be taken a look at.
Yeah, that's another show altogether. Even if you do
Right.
want to go to college, is it even possible?
Yeah, right. Because I mean, do you have the infrastructure yourself in order to get there?
Yeah,
Like, can you fly? Do you have the ability to like have really comfortable walking shoes
Right.
or are you a good runner? Or,
I
how
think
are you going to get there?
if
I
you're a
think
single
one of
parent,
the
give it up.
Yeah.
I was going to say I think one of the, I don't know if silver lining is the best phrase, but the pandemic and the shutdown, one of the things is the ability to access education virtually, that I think a lot of colleges are recognizing that is useful for some people. Just like you said, if I can access the information, if I can watch the instructor and learn how to do it on a Monday, and then I only have to come into my school and do the hands-on lab work one day, that kind of stuff.
So you're talking about flipped learning at the college level.
Yeah, I think that they are recognizing the value for some areas of education to continue to have access to online instruction.
But not everybody has access to the internet.
Right. But if they're, I think embracing, again, kind of going back to some of our previous episodes about different ways to access your education. And as opposed to you will show up at your 8 a.m. class and you will, it's on Monday, right? And it's then or nothing. And so I think both institutions, community colleges and universities, are embracing that a bit more. How can we get more people to participate in getting, additional education towards a degree, which is kind of nice. I like that little piece.
Because I think equity is really important, especially at that level. But it needs to be happening all the way through, from pre-K all the way up through university.
Right.
Because they're not going to be able to have any of the noted skills that they're the prerequisites in order for them to achieve anything at the university level. Now, okay, so if students are dropping out because they don't feel academically prepared, that's a little bit different than a purpose.
Yeah, definitely.
But do you think that might also be that they thought, I don't know what that means. I really don't know what that means, that they're not academically prepared. Do you think it means that they don't have the maturity level?
Like they can't handle the workload kind of thing?
Yeah.
Or just
that. Okay, so when I first went to university, I was having a wonderful time. We were running around playing Frisbee and going running in the middle of the night. Wake up after 2 hours of sleep. I'd run into my environmental studies class.
Right.
And I would somehow or other slog through that. And then, my day would just seem so long. I'd fall asleep and then I'd wake up and we'd go running again through the campus. So my study skills were not very good, and it took me a while to acquire those.
Exactly.
So
it sounds like somebody's excuse to become a dirt bag in Yosemite. Yeah, I wasn't academically prepared for university, so I think I'll go climb on El Cap for a while.
Yeah, I have to go backpack.
Well,
yeah, I mean, seeing it through my son's eyes, and granted, he was in this weird time frame, right, where he is graduating. He had a year, the virtual year just kind of shifted everybody's study skills habit. But you're right, like his first day of college, and they were like, okay, so everyone's read the 50 pages and we have a quiz on, a test on Friday. He's like, sorry, what? Like, hey, where are the icebreakers? They just weren't ready for, like, you hit the ground running and you have massive amounts of work. He was just like, this is so, they were not ready for that. So that part, I think, is absolutely true. And it's probably going to be a while until we can kind of right the ship from the amount of students who, I just had to hang out in my pajamas and I didn't have to turn on my camera and I only had to type in the chat a little bit and I just turned in something and yay, I got credit, right? And I think it's going to take a while for kids to get that work ethic back.
It's going to be a whole semester
Tony,
before he figures out he doesn't have to
classes.
read the stuff, or at least most of the stuff that was assigned.
But there was also there's also the
figure
anxiety.
out what he does and doesn't have to read, right? He's got to.
He skims most of the good stuff. Good.
But there's also the anxiety that some of the students bring into that because one, they're no longer being coddled,
right? Exactly. Yeah,
and there's been many students have been so bloody coddled all the way through high school. I mean, they can do no wrong, blah blah blah. And you have the anxiety of, with the new faces being on your own. What do you do?
It's hard for everybody, right? And so, especially if you're coming from, like you said, I've been really supported, soft, pillowy, support the entire time of all my 12 years. And all of a sudden you're like, professor's like, okay, you didn't come to class, whatevs. And no, you're not getting an extension. And yes, everything is due tomorrow. And, it's just a huge, and they're not going to chase you down if you didn't turn the paper in. And, oh, you lost power. Too bad, right? You're still, the work's due. That was hypothetically one of my experiences. Like, we lost power. How can I turn my paper in? She's like, figure it out. I'm like, oh, this is what?
I thought you were giving us a blow by blow of your discussions with your son.
No, this was mine in graduate school where we had it was one of those, the windstorm of the century kind of thing. And like power was knocked out and we had we had a huge term paper due. And I was like, so, we're getting an extension, right? Because, we didn't have power. She's like, is the whole world out of power? She's like, can you get some, she just did not care. You have something due. You have to figure it out. Kind of thing. And I share that story with my students. Taxes are due on the 15th. You have to you have to do something on that date. You can't just be like, meh, right?
Or do it before and get it done.
Get it done ahead of time, right? Don't wait till the last second. You need to get everything organized ahead. And, that's just the life. You have to show up for your shift at your job. You have to make your car payment, like that kind of stuff, right? Like
you have to make your mortgage payment.
Yeah. Right. And if you don't meet these deadlines, which I think a lot of time in high school, going back to that, the kids don't feel prepared, right? We are doing everything we can to get a lot of our students across the finish line. And then we're like, whoosh, we shove them out to college of some level. And then the professors are like, figure it out. And it's kind of a big wake up call.
I think for a lot of teachers, it may feel like karma.
For the students.
Yeah, exactly.
Surprise.
We got you.
I always took comfort in the fact Jimmy Buffett's quote, "We are the people our parents warned us about."
Right. Yeah.
I'm gonna wrap up. So we'll go over college isn't for everybody, especially university, because students should have a purpose when they go. And they should have some kind of financial stability. 60% of dropouts did not receive any parental support for their university. So we want to make sure that they are prepared financially, that they have the infrastructure, that they have a purpose, and that they know why they're going. If they don't, then community college is a wonderful way to do it. It's also a wonderful way for vocational training and for them to test the waters to see what they want to do, or if they want to do it. It gives them all kinds of ideas. We know that liberal arts degrees are going down. Actually, college enrollment is going down.
Yeah.
Year over year. And
as a whole, that was one of the stats on our shared thing. Like it's, what was it? Where is it? 2.5% is the decline in just undergraduate student enrollment
in 1 year.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
In 1 year. And I was looking at and it's gone down. I can't remember what it was. Was it 2.8 or 8.1%? I can't remember. I have it somewhere, but it was a big shocking kind of statistic for fall of 2021 as well. It went down even further. College has become such a big business, and that's what it is. And they're charging so much money.
Yeah.
And they're luring people in, telling them that they will have not only the time of their lives, but they will leave and they will be enriched in their wallets with good jobs and et cetera. And we're having all these people who say, wait a second, but you got to work for the job. You got to work and figure out what it is that you're going to do.
Right.
Nothing just comes, it's not a Christmas gift or a birthday present. It's something that you have to work for.
Well, in light of the thing about vocational training too, if you think about all the career changes you have in a lifetime, you don't necessarily have to start with a college degree.
No, you don't. And, the thing is that the job that you accept, or maybe the position that you're looking at taking is not necessarily going to be the same position that you're going to have a few years down the line,
Right.
because you may be able to take those skills and you may blossom and realize that you're pretty good at some other stuff. And then you're going to take a look and you're going to want to figure out how to flesh that out and then move on.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe your company, if it's a good company, they will help you with that, and they will encourage you, and they will utilize that in order to make their company more fluid and a better company.
Right. And because they want to retain their employees, they don't want to have to keep training new people. So
Right.
if there's a way that they can retain you and gain more skill, that's just a benefit to the company. And I think the big message too is that I don't want our overall message to be like you have to do one or the other. I also think community college is a great stepping stone, right? You figure out, like what Philip was saying, figure out what your purpose is. I'm going to get all my prereqs done at community college for a lot less money. And then when I know I'm going to be in, the medical field, or I'm going to be in business, and then you can transfer that to college, right? And so you kind of have done the best of both avenues, which is kind of a nice. I mean, that's another really great opportunity for a lot of students, which I think more and more are taking advantage of. They get
definitely
the stuff that you can take at almost any college, right? Like your basic stuff. And by the time you're really focused on your major, you can kind of hone in on like, this college is the one for me. And hopefully your stuff transfers, right? Fingers crossed.
And well, they should, if you're going to a community college, they should transfer to a state university. Mm-hmm. That shouldn't be an issue. But to be prepared is to be forearmed. And just know what it is that you're going to do, and don't go in there with your eyes closed. But I think we need to be teaching these things to the students. And so the big question is then, how are we going to do that? And so I'm going to leave it up to people to kind of jostle that around in their brains.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that we'll visit this again. And also, I'm going to plug next week's episode, which is an interview with the incredible Marcus LeGrand, who is on a school board, who started a fathers group for parental involvement, and has a lot of other great models for people. So stay tuned with us then. So
looking forward to it.
Yes. Okay, so I will say bye, and see you next week. Thank you, Philip. Thank you, Kristen.
Aloha.
Thank you.